Welcome, everyone. Sorry we're a few minutes late. I realized with the show we've got going today, the things we're going to talk about, I couldn't just sit here with only coffee. I needed a little something extra in there, so I had to take care of that. I apologize. Took me a minute or two there. Josh, how you doing, man? What did you think of this episode?
I'm doing well. I like this episode. It sounds like I like this episode better than a lot of people who review weekly the Mandalorian show. I'm just getting the vibes. There's a lot of people maybe outside of us that are not liking this show, but I enjoyed the cameos, and they were welcomed as Bryce Dallas Howard directed this episode. And this is also happening at the same time as Star Wars Celebration, so we're getting huge news as well on what's upcoming. And I think we understand now with the movie announcements as well where we are going with The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that was interesting, we saw the Ahsoka trailer. We're going to talk about that later. I was watching a panel, or not a panel, an interview with Favreau and Filoni this morning, and they mentioned something that I found interesting when they just said this is happening at the same time as The Mandalorian, right? And so it was unclear exactly when the timeline was going to be. Are we doing some flashbacks? Like, what is actually happening here? So it seems like it's going to be at least most part set at the same time, which should be awesome. But let's get into this episode. And Josh, the way I want to break it down is I think at the beginning and the end of this episode, we're really on the Mandalorian piece, and then the middle is something different. So I'm going to start with the beginning and the end kind of together. But one thing I want to ask you, we've got the Mandos for hire, right? This is the guns for hire that the episode refers to. And then later, Din and Bo-Katan are also guns for hire. But these guys are actually doing this purely for money, right? So we see they break up some nice young couple. I don't know why. I was a little disappointed that the love couldn't win them over, but whatever. Let me ask you like a kind of larger theory here on them. Did they break out Moff Gideon?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. I'm going to say no. If I had to choose, I'm going to say no, because if they broke out Moff Gideon, they used Moff Gideon's ship to break him out. Like, Moff Gideon be like, no, just throw me back in. Like, I want my ship back. You can't have your ship, but you're free. Well, I don't want that. I want my ship back. So I'm gonna decide to no, but I really enjoy that opening scene and just like how they operate and how they can convince without violence to get the people to do what they need to do so they could cash in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's them. I think that's a bit of the setup here. Like they're for hire, and we know that there was Beskar on the ship, so it feels like this might be all part of the same thing. This might be the exact group that they're trying to set up. But yeah, it would be surprising if Sasha Banks was like, "You did shoot me in the stomach recently, but I'm going to break you out of prison for some shekels."
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know what the people's price is. So it's something there. I also we were out last night having a couple drinks, and I jokingly said to you, and now maybe I thinking about it, maybe I was onto something. Did they blow up Bo-Katan's house?
I'm going to side with no on that, because those were TIE interceptors and TIE bombers, and they don't have any TIE fighters at their disposal.
It didn't look like it, right? I mean, they had a bit of a fleet, but it didn't. I couldn't tell as they were rolling in if those were all the ships similar to Bo-Katan's, or if there were some TIE fighters in there. But yeah, regardless, I mean, there was way too many for it to have been them. I just kind of love the idea that they would have been in on it, since they don't seem to like her. And we get that when they meet, and X-Woves is now in charge. But he got his ass kicked. Was that too easy, Josh? Do you feel like it was too easy of a fight, or do you think it was a good enough fight to like be convincing that like this guy's pretty tough, but Bo-Katan's just the toughest around?
So you bring up a good question, and this is just a question for all things Hollywood, TV and movies. And professional fighters or stunt coordinators or those that teach stunt coordinators make a point that if you're aiming to be realistic, fights actually don't last that long. They're not 10-minute battles because endurance is a huge factor. Your adrenaline picks up, and because your adrenaline picks up, fatigue kicks in a lot sooner. At some point, you're just going to start going for the kill shot on each other. One's going to land, one's not going to land. So I'm okay with the duration of the fight. And it was a pretty serious fight. I mean, both sides got some serious blows to one another, with Bo-Katan winning. But we always knew just how fierce of a warrior Bo-Katan is.
You know, going flamethrower is aggressive. I'm just going to say it.
That's the kill shot. Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, you're like, okay, we're going to see who's tougher, or I'm going to burn your face off. Now, luckily, Bo-Katan got the shield up quick enough. But, yeah, that could have been, I mean, that would have been an interesting choice. You know, we get the rest of the season, a little bit of like Phantom of the Opera face for Bo. That would have been something. She might keep the mask on more. She might keep the helmet on, you know. But yeah, so this fight, which is interesting to me, is that we don't really know at this point how this transition happened. How did X-Woves take over for Bo? Did she just leave? Did she just give up? Or did they just kind of like shun her when she came back without the Darksaber? Despite the fact that they captured Moff Gideon, they took this enormous ship. Like,
right.
It seems like I get why they would be like, you don't have the Darksaber, but neither does this guy. And what has he done? Right? Like, he kind of sucks if we're looking at it overall. So like, I'm shocked that this transpired. So I really kind of want to know. I hope we go back to it and understand, how did X-Woves take over? Now,
I don't think we're to get that scene. I see where you're coming from, and it would be helpful. It would have been helpful in this particular episode to have that type of flashback on how Sabine really lost, not Sabine, Bo-Katan lost her crew. It may have just been a full-scale mutiny, and Axe-Woves is like, listen, without the Darksaber, she can't retake Mandalore, so her mission is doomed to fail. Let's make some credits. And everyone else is like, yeah, all right, credits sound good.
Yeah, maybe it was purely money, right? Like, do we keep following around Bo-Katan and trying to take back Mandalore? Or do we just, you know, we're running out of money, we're running out of food, we're running on fumes. Why not just start being mercenaries? And then if Bo wasn't into it, who cares? She doesn't have the Darksaber. You know, so could be that. Could be that. I wish there would have been a little bit more explanation, but, you know, there was plenty of other stuff in the episode. But we did get some explanation around something. And it was how Bo is actually going to get the Darksaber back. So it's a little bit of a logic piece here where it's like, well, I got defeated. Josh, as you mentioned, that machine ruled Mandalore for just a short while. Then Bo-Katan shows up, cuts that thing to bits with the Darksaber, and in Din's opinion, that means it's hers. And it seemed like everybody went along with this. What do you think, Josh? Do you think that this is going to be enough of an explanation moving forward that Bo wields it?
So this kind of falls into the trap that Harry Potter had with the Elder Wand. That you don't have to kill someone to be able to fully control the Elder Wand. You just have to be able to disarm them in order to have control of the Elder Wand. You don't have to fight the person that has it directly. You could take it if you went spelunking in a cave. That's one way of doing it. But in this case, I mean, Din just got surprised, right? Surprise attack, it's a trap. And I still don't know what the Vishi was doing. I guess drawing blood out of Din.
Yeah, it seemed it was still organic enough that it needed some sustenance, and I guess Din was going to be that.
I guess so. So I guess that's a fight Din lost that fight. And then, yeah, we saw Bo-Katan wield the Darksaber, was far more effective with the Darksaber than Din was. So, on a technicality, yeah, it belongs to Bo-Katan. So, I guess it makes sense. This is when I was watching, I'm like, I feel like an idiot. Like, we should have noticed this weeks ago, Chorizy. Like, we should have pointed this out. Be like, technically, Din just lost the fight. And Bo-Katan defeated that machine with a Darksaber. So does she own the Darksaber now? And there's even still a theory that, well, if you have to kill the person that owned the Darksaber, that technically the Darksaber belongs to Luke Skywalker. But then that also brings up the whole argument, who actually killed Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi? And was Darth Vader the rightful heir to the Darksaber? But if he died, then does it go to Luke Skywalker or to Princess Leia? See, this is the rabbit hole you could fall down very quickly when it comes to who should own the Darksaber.
Well, see, here's the funny thing about it. The funny thing about it is, like, when you go down that rabbit hole and you go back to the beginning, right? Tar Vizsla makes the Darksaber, right? That's his weapon. That's his lightsaber, basically.
Right.
He dies.
And it's in the
Jedi.
Down.
It's in the Jedi Temple, and the Vizslas go in and steal it. So, like, no one owns this thing. Like, Tar Vizsla still is the is the rightful owner of this. So it's kind of a weird thing that needs to be the this is
Tar Vizsla's not the rightful owner though. Maul defeated him.
No. Tar Vizsla. So this is thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Right. Whoever was headed at that point, it's a Vizsla. It's not Tar. It's
Is it Paz?
No, Paz is in this show. I forget the name, but anyway, Pre-Vizsla.
Yes.
Good name, Pre. Yeah. So he's he's the one that lost it to Maul, I believe. It changes hands a bunch in Rebels too. But originally it's just like it was stolen from a Jedi temple. So it's not like it belonged to really anybody. So I don't know about this whole logic that they have for it. It's weird. Just like keeping their helmets on is weird. But I think the one thing that is a true piece of Mandalorian legend and a thing that would truly unite them is if someone were to ride the mythosaur. So I think that's still in play. I'm interested to see who that ends up being.
It's gonna be Grogu.
I mean, I think Grogu will have a hand in it, right? I mean, like his connection to animals just feels like he'll have a hand in this somehow.
Yeah.
Other than just helping Lizzo play whatever game they were playing in that in that planet, Plaisir 15. Which let's get to that, because this was a fun part of the episode. It was like they mashed in like this detective movie into the middle of the episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought, like, if we're going to do something like this, man, did you pick a lot of great characters for this? Jack Black is on a rewatch. There's so many little faces that Jack Black makes during this that are just classic. Christopher Lloyd is great in everything that he does. But let's talk a little bit about, will there be any impact of this? Or was this just kind of a throwaway fun thing where it's like, okay, Din's learning to trust droids more. At the beginning of the season, we know he still doesn't. He trusts IG, is it 88 or 11? IG 11. He trusts that droid. That's the only one he trusts.
Right.
And then there's other things throughout the episodes that, he has a lack of trust of these. This is a big kind of turning point in that. And then he meets up with the droids in the droid bar, and they're all like, we want to help you. I don't think that's just that, right? Like, so will Jack Black, recognizing Mandalore as a sovereign system, come back? Will Grogu's knighthood come back? What do you think might happen from this episode? Like, what's going to come out of this episode?
Well, if Mandalore is reclaimed and is recognized as a sovereign nation by the New Republic, that's going to make things very difficult for any remaining Imperial forces in the Outer Rim. Because that means if you do something on Mandalore, you are outgunned and outmanned and outshipped right now by the New Republic. So that could thwart plans to regroup and rebuild. So you don't want that. And that plays into the factor of the movie announcement that Dave Filoni is going to be directing. And we hinted at the beginning part of the possible end game for this series. And for those that didn't get the announcement, Dave Filoni will be directing a Star Wars movie, and Jon Favreau is the executive producer of said Star Wars movie. And they're going to be following the blueprint of what Marvel did with the Avengers, is that all of these TV shows, the new Ahsoka show, Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew, and The Mandalorian, they're all going to intersect to a point, and all those intersections are going to come into this movie. So I'm wondering if this is a bit foreshadowing that maybe they do retake Mandalore at the end of this season of The Mandalorian, but this is where Thrawn enters into play. That he is going to try to stop or at least slow the progress of the New Republic claiming territories in the Outer Rim. And by doing so, this is where he starts getting involved.
That's a good point. And it could be Jack Black that accidentally tips them off, that this is coming. Like, hey, look, let's recognize Mandalore and then just kind of draw it to the attention like, oh, there's still Mandalorians? They're trying to go back? I'm with you there. That could be something that's very impactful here later in the season or in future seasons or movies. You mentioned the Skeleton Crew. That I watched the thing this morning or maybe last night with Filoni and Favreau, and they described it almost like the Goonies. Like that's the kind of the style of movie that they're doing. So I think that could be very interesting. But it could, I think we did learn it's all going to tie back to one guy, and we'll get to him in just a little bit. But what did you think about Christopher Lloyd in this? And like his just kind of role in this is like, I don't like any of you governments. Like all of you kind of suck, and I don't like what's happening here now.
And the reference to Count Dooku was a surprise. Yeah. I was not expecting to hear a Count Dooku reference. There's a lot more to that, and because Count Dooku was, even though serving Palpatine and helping Emperor Palpatine hatch the plan, Count Dooku also had feelings of going another direction. And maybe Count Dooku was in support of direct democracies like there are on this planet, which creates this type of gray area that we've always known about the character for Count Dooku. But the fact that Christopher Lloyd finally made it into Star Wars warms my heart. I thought he was the best part of this entire episode, and hopefully we get to see him later on. But if this is the only time Christopher Lloyd's in Star Wars, it was well done.
I mean, he's alive, right? I mean, like they just sent him in exile. So like he's out on whatever moon that was. I loved it. I love having, like, I'll take anything from Christopher Lloyd. He's just fantastic. So he was really good in this. And the Dooku thing is very interesting in terms of what we've been seeing out of Star Wars recently. So they had a Tales of the Jedi, which was a very Dooku centric. It was half Dooku, half Ahsoka, and that showed that he was really trying to look out for the little people at the start. He does some objectionable things later in those episodes, but they mention him in the Bad Batch too. Mm-hmm. And like it started out that it was great, but then he got greedy. He started taking all our money and doing all these things. So it's like interesting to see what that character develops as. And the problem is that by this time and in the time that Filoni and Favreau have, Dooku's long dead.
Yeah.
As is Asajj Ventress. And that's what's interesting when we see the Ahsoka trailer. Because there's two new characters that they're introducing in this. Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I watched some interviews with them this morning, and especially Baylan, the actor that plays Baylan, was talking about you're not really sure if he's good or bad, and there were rumors floating around when they started talking about the Ahsoka trailer or the Ahsoka show that there was going to be, the Thrawn piece, and he was going to bring back with him from the world that he ended up in at the end of Rebels. He was going to bring back with him 2 dark side users, a master and apprentice, an older man and a young woman, so that Filoni could write some of the things that he always wanted to write for Dooku and Ventress. And so this may be, that rumor may have been true. There may have been something founded there in what people were saying. So I'm very interested to see what these characters look like. Josh, what do you think? You think that they're filling that role, or do you think they're coming from somewhere else?
I think you are right. I think they are going to fill in that role. There's always 2, right? That's the Sith philosophy. There's always 2, a master and an apprentice. So I think if it's that route, they could be borrowing a lot from Timothy Zahn with the Heir to the Empire, which gets me excited. You're essentially replacing Luke Skywalker in those books with Ahsoka, which I would approve. I don't know what you do with Leia and Han as far as in those books. Maybe you just ignore those parts of the story and you formulate your own story, just using some of that reference material.
You do have Sabine and Ezra, too.
Well, I guess
Sabine and Hera, at some point, or Sabine and Hondo and Akka. I'm not gonna stop wishing for that. But yeah, I mean, like the only other theories I've heard, Josh, and I want your take on this, is so. Right now, the characters are named Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. There's been rumors that the fight scene that you see in there is in the world between worlds, and that possibly Ahsoka has pulled forth someone like Darth Bane or Darth Revan into the current times of Star Wars. It's a wild theory, but what do you think about that?
I mean, it's possible in the world between worlds, but is that a mistake? Is that a mistake by Ahsoka that she was trying to pull somebody else, but instead,
yeah, I mean,
Darth Bane?
Are you trying to pull? Are you taking the bait of pulling in Ezra, and you pull in a lot more than Ezra,
right?
I mean, we saw that with Ezra in the world between worlds. Like there was temptations, and like it could cause problems if he were to do things. Although he does pull Ahsoka out of there. So she's got to, in some sense, think, okay, it's okay to pull someone out of the world between worlds.
I wonder what her intended target was. Would it be Anakin, like Anakin in the Clone Wars?
Oh, wow. That would be something.
Would it be Yoda?
It could be, or just trying to communicate with Yoda.
Yeah,
I think
you can go to a Jedi temple to do that.
Well, I wonder if that's where she is when she cuts the hole in the ground and lands inside that like kind of open room. I kind of wonder if she's going into a Jedi temple in that, because it's similar to the way that Ezra had to enter the world between worlds. He went in through I forgot. It's like there was that big picture of the
right. It was the puzzle that he had to move things with the Mortis
Force people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested to see what that. I mean, like it could get real weird if that truly is the world between worlds. But I don't know, man. I'm up for whatever in this. That's going to be really cool. I think though, the thing I'm most excited about is in the trailer we saw it. We saw the back of his head. Thrawn in real life Thrawn. I'm so excited
real life
for
Thrawn, yes.
I'm so excited for it. But they announced this morning it is Lars Mikkelsen. If you were tuned in at the very beginning of this, I posted a quick picture of him as Thrawn. He looks I think he looks fantastic. He seems, in the interviews I've seen, he seems very excited about being able to bring that character to life and to try and do as much as he can from what they did in Rebels and bring that with it, but have a little bit of a different light to it as a live action character. I'm like just over the moon, and to hear that Timothy Zahn is consulting on this show, even more so. I think we're going to see a lot of cool stuff out of that. Josh, what did you think about Thrawn coming back?
Thrawn is easily a top 10 character in Star Wars. And for those that didn't read the books, for those that didn't read or watch Star Wars Rebels, they're going to be introduced to Thrawn for the first time. And it's really, for those that are going to be introduced to Thrawn for the first time, we may see these reviews again, me complaining about people reviewing, saying, I don't want to do the homework. I don't want to read these books. I don't want to read outside material. I don't want to watch Star Wars Rebels. I just want to continue to watch the TV show. So please have some type of backstory. I'm sorry, you ain't getting the backstory. Like, we are moving forward. Like, if you want the backstory, it's already been produced. Just go watch those shows or read that material.
If you want the backstory on Thrawn and all the books, what I suggest you do is go to a White Sox game and you sit in section 108 near row 13, and then you come sit nearby me and say, man, I would really like to know about Thrawn. And even though the games are shorter now, I think I could sum it all up in 3 hours. So just, get a couple beers, get someone to get you beers, because we're not getting up, because we're just going to go straight through. We're going to talk about all the books. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a ton of source material out there on Thrawn, so there is a huge backstory. You can definitely look up some YouTube videos and find out more of them. As we get closer to that, I will probably put together some blogs and things about Thrawn, or we'll just jump on here, Josh, and I'll just bore you to death with my knowledge of Thrawn. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. And there's another character that comes back in this show that Chopper. I thought was dead. I thought so. Chopper does come back, and Chopper was at the panel today. So live Chopper on the panel. I don't think he talked too much, but a character that I thought was dead was Morgan Elsbeth that we saw in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Was it season 2 or was it 2? Yeah, that was season 2. This is the magistrate of that town that had the Beskar spear. I thought for sure that Ahsoka had killed that character. She shows up in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And even then I thought, this must be a flashback. And then today I was watching an interview, and they brought her in and said that she survived that and that she's still alive. And she also said that she is extremely loyal to Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I'm thinking that out of the books, if you guys are familiar with the books, there were characters in the Legends books like Captain Pellaeon, and then in the newer Timothy Zahn prequel books for Thrawn, there's a female admiral in the Chiss Ascendancy that is super loyal to him and helps him out in a lot of different situations, and that's Admiral Arlani. I'm hopeful that they kind of use the parts that they had in the Chiss Ascendancy with her as Morgan Elsbeth, because she is awesome. And what I learned today, listening to an interview, Bruce Lee is her godfather.
What?
Yes. So she's been a practicing martial artist since she was like 11. And so, yeah, I think you're going to see some really great scenes with her. I mean, I think also, not to jump off to something else, but the people that have seen the Acolyte footage also say that it has a huge martial arts feel, and that there are long extended cuts of fights. So like, you're going to see like fully choreographed fights in the Acolyte. I think you're going to see that here too. I think that's one of the reasons that they brought Morgan Elsbeth back. I think you might even, I'm hoping to see her and Thrawn spar. That's always a fun part of like, when he spars in the books and when he fights in the books, because he's also a martial art. I don't think Lars Mikkelsen is, but I think they could make it look good.
If Keanu Reeves can learn Kung Fu,
right?
Maybe exactly. Lars can learn Kung Fu as well. I had no idea she's the goddaughter of Bruce Lee. Wow.
Yeah, she said it, and I was like, wait, did I hear that right? Like, I feel like I need to rewind that. But yeah. Her father is a famous martial artist as well, and I'm blanking on the name, so I don't want to even just mess it up. So, But yeah, I thought that was an interesting addition there, and I think that could be a really good kind of side character to Thrawn, because Thrawn always needs that other person because he's not really a monologue guy. He's more of a let's think this through, and like if he doesn't have someone to bounce it off of, it's just him standing there thinking. So I think that that's going to be. I'm hoping that that's that character, and that it could be very effective. Any other thoughts on this trailer, Josh? Because there's a lot to unpack in just a minute 51 or whatever it is.
I don't know about thoughts, other than I can't wait for August. I can't wait. I think, again, the search for Ezra, we see a hologram picture of Ezra. We see Sabine. We see Hera. Are we going to see Jason? Is Jason still involved?
I think you have to see Jason. So here's the problem that Star Wars has, right? Is they're bringing on some younger, Force-sensitive characters, right? And if you want them to be alive, they can't be with Luke. like that was the thing we joked about when they were like, Grogu's going with Luke, and it's like, well, he's gonna get his little ears chopped off by Ben Solo. Jason Syndulla, same boat, like Force sensitive, but like you better hope Ezra's training them, because if it's Luke, bad ending. We already know the ending to that story. So I think that's going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting if we're getting into movies with Rey in the future, right? Those are maybe like 30 years after these events, I think, 25 years, something like that. You're looking at fully grown Jason Syndulla. You're looking at near 100-year-old Grogu.
Right.
Are they going to be characters in these movies that they're going to have with Rey? Or movies?
I feel like Grogu will.
I don't see how Disney would skip that. Right. Like it's just like we're bringing back Rey, but do we also want to make a ton of money? Yes, we should probably have 80-year-old Grogu. Who I have no idea will it be, more like Yoda or still exactly like Baby Grogu?
Nah, he's gonna have the Mandalorian suit.
I mean, he's gonna have that, but like, how grown up is he gonna be? Can he speak at that point? Like, I don't know how they age.
Me neither. That's a good question.
So yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see how they use a character like Jason Syndulla in this. I would assume as a bit character, like he's just gonna be there enough so that you have some feeling of like Hera does have a child, and there's that element to it. I also wonder if we're going to see Zeb. You would think we're going to see Zeb, but is Zeb going to be in this, or is he going to be in the Rangers in the Republic? Is that going to happen? I have heard nothing about it this weekend from Celebration. Maybe we'll get the announcement tomorrow, because I think Celebration is almost over for today, since it's in Europe and it's nearly 7:00 there. So I think there's a lot to wonder about what's going to be in this show and what it's going to lead to, because it does sound like they're majorly investing in this kind of Favreau Filoni universe,
as they should,
Mandoverse, as they've been calling it.
Yeah, and they should. I can point out like how Ahsoka and the Mandalorian merge. The Book of Boba Fett merging, I'm a little uncertain how that happens unless Boba Fett shows up in the next 2 episodes here, The Mandalorian. And then Skeleton Crew, we're just going to have to wait and see when the Skeleton Crew gets released and how they're going to merge. But yeah, these 4 shows are going to merge into one movie.
Yeah, and it's the Skeleton Crew one is the one that's the most off to me, because they described it as like what happens in the suburbs of the galaxy. Right? Like, so it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to, maybe put some kind of shocking event that happens that the Skeleton Crew has to deal with. And that's going to build into like a larger piece. I'm very intrigued by all of it. Like it's
Yeah.
it's just like everything that I've heard from Star Wars Celebration this weekend, the tidbits that we're getting, the little clips that people have so kindly pirated and put out on the internet. I think it's all it's all just getting me more and more excited for what's to come. But we got 2 weeks left of this show.
Yes.
Both have the same director. Bo-Katan is now wielding the Darksaber. In interviews with Katie Sackhoff this week that we've watched, the main thing she keeps saying is, I can't believe that there's only 2 episodes because I know how much we filmed and how much is left of this story. So I think they're going to be obviously very action packed. I don't think there's going to be, if you were expecting another episode where we're going to go on a detective run for like the middle 20 minutes of the show, don't expect that. I think it's going to be kind of wall to wall action for the next 2 episodes. And we'll see how that leads in to the coming out in August, possibly September, Ahsoka show. So I'm excited for those last 2 episodes. Before we go today, I do want to remind everybody that coming up in actually right after May the 4th, from the 108 and Sox Machine, and I hope a whole bunch of you are going to go down to Cincinnati to go see the Sox play the Cincinnati Reds. And we'll get to that promo in just a second as we end. But also at 5:30 tonight, we will be on playback. So if you go to playback.tv/Sox Machine. I've also tweeted it out. You can go to the From the 108 Twitter. The link is there too. We will be doing the Pirates Sox game. Hopefully better result than yesterday, but hopefully as much hitting from the Sox as yesterday.
Yes.
So
Keep
we will
the
see you.
offense.
We will see you there, and hopefully we will see you in Cincinnati. And until then, enjoy the rest of Celebration on the YouTubes, and we'll talk to you soon.